Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today I want to tell you about all the best stuff Netflix is adding in June 2020. So this list is going to be all the stuff I recommend you keep an eye out for coming to Netflix in June. That's going to be some older classics, maybe some hidden gems you've never seen, as well as some of the new Netflix original movies, two of which I'm super excited about. And we'll go date by date with all the points of interest along the month, and then at the end of the video, we'll talk about everything leaving in the month of June so you don't miss it before it leaves. And this video is sponsored by Universal Yums, and I'll tell you more about them after we knock out everything getting added on June 1st. In no particular order, on the 1st, they're adding a bunch of stuff, including Act of Valor, which is a really cool modern warfare movie that didn't get very good reviews, mainly because it's this very low budget piece and they filmed it with actual Navy SEALs instead of actors, and you can notice they're not very good actors, but they also don't ruin the movie or take you out of it completely. It adds this sense of realism, and this is a pretty cool flick, especially when you take into consideration how it was made. It's very, very interesting. Inside Man is a great Spike Lee movie that doesn't really feel like a Spike Lee movie at all. It's just sort of right down the middle without any sort of like overly creative things that he's sort of known for. But I like this. This is a great heist movie starring Denzel Washington and Clive Owen. If you've never seen it, it is just it's a great crowd pleaser. It's one of the more successful movies Spike Lee did in terms of just being widely consumable. Didn't make it the best movie he's ever made, but it's certainly one of the most watchable ones. And I focus so much on Spike Lee because his next film is a Netflix original movie getting added later in the month, but we'll talk about that shortly.
No need to thank me. I'm just a guy with a gun. Pow, pow, pow.
Observe and Report is a really funny movie starring Seth Rogen, and it is a dark comedy, but I found this one to be hilarious, whereas a lot of dark comedies are almost overly dry. This one, while it was dry, was also silly enough to actually make me laugh throughout. And then it's got a great supporting cast with people like Michael Pena and Ray Liotta. But this one is really weird and really dark, so if that sounds like you, definitely make a point to watch it. Priest is kind of a cool looking movie. I wouldn't say it's a very good movie, but it is beautiful to look at. If you just want to veg out and take in some stunning visuals, some Matrix-like visuals, Priest is a good way to go. Just don't expect to get much more out of that movie. The Boy was a decent horror flick just from a couple of years ago. Reminded me a little bit of People Under the Stairs. Don't expect much and you might be surprised by The Boy. Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, is one of the funnier movies from the 2000s, and I think it's greatly underappreciated. This one is just such a silly comedy, and it's just a laugh a minute. If you like movies like Airplane and you never bothered to watch this one, I find it absolutely hilarious.
Don't want Greg age.
You're 19? Yeah. I just turned 14.
Wow, happy birthday.
The Disaster Artist is one that I really enjoyed from just a couple of years ago. This is actually directed by James Franco, and he's playing Tommy Wiseau, who's most known for his disaster of a movie called The Room, which is just now a cult classic. And this is one of the better movies I've ever seen about making a movie. Sometimes those get so contrived and the writers get sort of up their own asses with that type of storytelling, and I found The Disaster Artist to be kind of refreshing within that genre. You Don't Mess with the Zohan might be one of the better underappreciated Adam Sandler movies ever. I feel like while his career in movies really started off on a high note, I love his earlier movies, it was just sort of this downward slope. And then You Don't Mess with the Zohan is a really weird one that's sort of in the middle of his career that is surprisingly better than a lot of the other stuff that came out around it. Another just super, super silly one. But if you're in the mood for that, this is a great one that you probably forgot about even if you had seen it. The Help also gets added. Just a good quality movie that they're adding here on the 1st. If you've never seen it, it's based on a book by the same name, won a ton of awards, and it's just full of good performances, and it's just a good all-around flick. Another one that falls into that category is The Queen, which is like Helen Mirren's kind of cornerstone performance. It's sort of the defining performance of her career. Not necessarily my favorite movie starring her, but certainly one of her better performances and the one she's most known for. V for Vendetta also gets added. Natalie Portman is known for shaving her head on camera in this movie. In addition to that, it's done by the creators of The Matrix, and it's just got some great visuals and an overall really kind of good and interesting story with some 1984 elements thrown in. Just a good, solid sci-fi watch. Not a favorite of mine by any means, but I also don't find many things wrong with this movie either. West Side Story, the classic from 1961, also gets added. I find it fairly rare that they add classic movies from the 60s on Netflix, and this is obviously a majorly famous one. While I'm not a big musical guy, I figured I at least need to mention it on this video. And then Zodiac is getting added back. They always seem to just take it away and bring it back. It's one of those that is almost always on Netflix. If you've never seen it, it's a great crime thriller from David Fincher. It's a little slower than I would have liked, but it's still really well done. If you love some of the crime stuff Netflix has been putting out, Zodiac is a cut above just because it comes from such an amazing director. And then also on the first, there's a whole slew of 90s movies getting added, starting with All Dogs Go to Heaven, which notably did come out in 1989, but for the sake of this video, I'm calling it a 90s movie because that's when everyone watched it. The remake of Cape Fear, starring Robert De Niro and directed by Martin Scorsese, gets added. This is a really great remake, actually. While the original is a great movie, I find this remake to just be really well done. It improves upon the original without trying to change it too much. Casper is a fun family movie from the 90s. If you're around my age, odds are you have kids close to the age you were when this came out, so that could be a lot of fun to do as a family since you're all stuck inside together anyway. Also from 1995, Clueless is getting added. Just kind of a time capsule of a movie. It's been a while since you've seen it. It's a great representation of parts of American culture right here in the mid-90s. Silence of the Lambs gets added, not one for the whole family, but still just one of the better murder mysteries to have ever been released. From 97, Starship Troopers, a movie that was very underappreciated in its time, but has developed this amazing cult following. I wish they had really made like a full-on trilogy. Now they did make other movies, but I wish that they had all been as good as the first one. But this is a really good sci-fi sort of satire flick that's just got some great action, but also this weird quirkiness to it that works so well. And then finally from 1996, Twister is getting added. It has been forever since I've seen this movie. While it's not the smartest movie ever made, it is a ton of fun and it works really well, and there's a reason it was so popular back in 96 when it came out. It's just a good all-around watch. Now, before moving on to the rest of the month, let's talk about Universal Yums really quickly. They sponsor the channel, so not only do I appreciate that, but I appreciate that they send me these amazing boxes. So here's the last one that I got. You can sign up with the link in the description to receive one of these. This is the big boy. This is the big one. They also come in 2 smaller sizes at smaller price points. And each month it arrives at your door packed with snacks from different parts of the world. This box is from the Philippines and it's loaded with all sorts of tasty stuff. I think me and Mrs. Van Dam blew through this box in about 2 sittings, which is probably not a good idea, but it was delicious. We actually did a live stream where we opened and tasted a lot of it on the channel with you. If you want to check out that, you can check out that link in the description as well, or just check out the Universal Yums link and get some delicious snacks delivered to your door and make an event out of it like we do here in this house. It is a date night. Every time we get one of these boxes, we schedule the night we're gonna do it. We don't put a movie on, and we sit and we go through all the information and the little games and stuff that come in the box. It's a ton of fun. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as we have here in this house. All right, now for the rest of the month, we're going in chronological order, and I'll be sure to call out some of the titles that I'm especially excited about. But on the 3rd, they add this weird little Schwarzenegger movie called Killing Gunther. Now this has been available on other streaming services. It's been free on some of the free services and I've yet to watch it, so I'm not sure that I'm gonna watch it just because they're adding it to Netflix, but I have been interested in it. I have no idea why I haven't watched it yet. Lady Bird got nominated for a ton of Academy Awards just a few years ago, including Best Picture. While I did think it was a good movie, I do not think it was for me. I can see where teenage girls, coming of age girls, or women sort of in their maybe 20s, early 30s who, you know, were in high school not too long ago would enjoy this movie more than me because they'll identify with it more than I did. It's really well done, it's just not really for me, and so I can't really recommend it too strongly for people who tend to like my recommendations. On the 5th, they add the 4th season of 13 Reasons Why. This is a very popular series and was a very controversial series when it first came out because it does involve teenage suicide. It does look pretty intense though. A series I have really been wanting to watch and just haven't gotten around to it because I cut my cable cord right as the time that this was coming out is Hannibal. Now they're adding seasons 1 through 3. This stars Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal Lecter. And from all accounts, I hear this is a really incredible series. So I'm actually looking forward to diving into this one next month. And then also on the 5th, one of the new Netflix originals I'm super excited about, The Last Days of American Crime.
That signal freezes you.
It stops you from doing anything illegal.
They use the signal to kill your brother. I want to use it to steal their money.
This is from a director kind of famous for mediocre action movies, like decent to mediocre action movies, like The Transporter 3. This looks good. It's a heist movie. It looks like it's kind of high adrenaline. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that this is gonna be kind of on the level of Six Underground from just a few months ago, meaning if you don't plan to take it too seriously, I think you could have a lot of fun with it. I could be wrong. This could be a fairly serious movie, but it doesn't look like it from the trailers. It does look like my cup of tea though. On the 10th, they add a little known movie called Middlemen, and this is about the guys who first figured out e-commerce. They figured out how to make money on the internet, and how did they do it? Through porn. But it is still very interesting, and it ultimately gets a little bit of a Wolf of Wall Street vibe as these guys come into tons of money overnight and dive headfirst into these lavish lifestyles that they can't really support. It's got a cool cast, it's got a cool vibe. Definitely one of the better hidden gems that Netflix is adding this month. Now on the 12th, they're adding another Netflix original movie I'm excited about called The Five Bloods. This is Spike Lee's next movie. It's about these black soldiers who hide all this gold while they're in Vietnam, and then they go back later to recover the treasure. And the cool thing about that is you get different actors playing the same characters. You get them when they're young and they're in the war, and then you get these older, more grizzled guys. Both sets of characters seem to be cast really well, and I'm interested to sort of see both sides of that story where they're at war and hiding the gold and then kind of fighting to come back to it. It looks really, really interesting. I'm actually surprised it's a Netflix original movie, but I'm also a little apprehensive because it's a Netflix original movie. Nevertheless, I will be watching it and giving you my thoughts. Also on the 12th, they're adding F is for Family Season 4. Just a good, funny comedy written by one of my favorite comedians working today, Bill Burr. If you haven't watched it, go ahead and watch the first season and see if it's for you, and then you can kind of work your way up to the new season.
Are you really saying the president can do something illegal?
I'm saying that when the president does it, that means it's not illegal.
I'm sorry?
And then on the other end of the spectrum, Frost Nixon is a really great Ron Howard movie about this famous interview with Nixon. It's really intense. It's this sort of boiler room type situation. It mostly takes place around this interview. You're basically watching the creation of and the interview itself, yet it's just really, really riveting. If you've never seen it, it's fantastic cinema. As far as movies go, where it's mostly just people just talking in a room, this is about as good as it gets. On the 18th, they add The Order Season 2. This is just one of those good teen scream type shows. If you like shows like Supernatural and Vampire Diaries, The Order is probably right up your alley. And then on the 19th, they add another Netflix original that is French language called Lost Bullet, but this one looks super sick, and Netflix is really hiding the 8 ball here. They are not really announcing that this is foreign language. They released a trailer with no dialogue in it. It looks like it's probably going to be my favorite pick of the month. That's just a prediction at this point, but I am very excited about this one. It looks like a great heist movie that's a little more serious maybe than the other one we talked about. On the 22nd, they add a movie called Dark Skies. This is a horror movie, maybe having to do with aliens, is sort of how they sell this movie. I do remember it, and I do remember liking it. While it is just sort of your typical PG-13 horror movie that they sort of put out to fill the movie theaters up with teenagers, it's slightly above that. Like, that's definitely what they made it for, and it checks all those boxes. But there's something better about it than that. On top of just being something different with the alien sort of angle on it, I dug this one. I think if you have low to no expectations for it, you'll be pleasantly surprised. On the 23rd, Eric Andre has a new stand-up special. I've actually never seen his stand-up work, but I was a big fan of the Eric Andre show. Just wild, crazy, sort of cutting-edge comedy. This is just stand-up, so I don't expect it to be as much of a performance piece as his show. But so far, I've really liked his sense of humor, and so I look forward to this special. And if that's too happy for you, on the 24th, they add a bummer of a documentary called Athlete A. This is a documentary about the breaking of the story about Larry Nassar, who abused, I believe, hundreds of young gymnasts when he was the doctor for the Olympic gymnast team. Really dark stuff, but from what I've seen, it looks like this could be a pretty compelling documentary. And then if that's too much of a bummer, on the 26th, they add one of the kookiest things I've seen Netflix add in a while. In fact, I can't even keep the title in my head. It's Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. Now, if that sounds weird, just check this out. Yes, that's Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams. I don't know anything about this other than what I just showed you, but I will definitely be checking it out on the 26th. And then on the 30th, George Lopez has a new special coming to Netflix. It's been a long time since I've seen him do a special. He was really kind of taken up with his talk show for a long time, but back when he was in his prime, in terms of comedy, he was killing it. He was like a top tier comedian, so I'm very interested to see what his current material is like in this current day and age. Now, before we talk about everything leaving in June and the dates that they're leaving, my movie of the week is called Arkansas. This just came out recently. It's currently available to rent, and I have been partnering with a company called Row 8, which is a movie streaming service where you can rent movies just like anything else, like you might rent on iTunes or Prime Video, but they often have cheaper prices and they have a movie love guarantee. So if you stop a movie within 30 minutes, you can watch another one on the house. And right now, if you sign up for a new account, you'll save $2 on your first rental. And when you use this code, you'll save $2 on your next rental or purchase. And Arkansas is this really cool crime movie. I loved it. It's got a good sense of humor, but it is fairly serious. It's got a really cool cast, including a great performance from Vince Vaughn. I have been loving the type of movies he's been making lately, and this one is no exception. Fans of Ozark and Breaking Bad should absolutely love this movie. This is a Darren Van Dam recommendation for sure. If it's been a while since you've rented something you really enjoyed and you like my sensibility, go check out Arkansas on Row 8 using the links and the code in the description. But here is everything leaving Netflix this month. Pay attention to the date. That is the date that it leaves, which means it probably gets ripped off of Netflix at midnight, or at least midnight Pacific time on the date there, so watch it before that date. If there's anything on this list you've been dying to watch, make sure you watch it soon. And speaking of not missing things, make sure you have that subscribe button clicked and the little bell icon so you get notified when I put out videos like this, so you do not miss what is being added to Netflix, as well as some of the hidden gems, my Amazon Prime list, all of that good stuff. And while you're at it, be sure to thank the Patreon supporters in the comments below. The new studio is coming together piece by piece, and soon I will be showing it to all of you, but Patreon supporters are getting a peek behind the scenes before all of you do, but I will keep making videos like this one as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this special episode, and you will see me on the next one.